Hello, I hope you're having a good day. In fact, I hope you're having a lucky day. I'm certainly having a lucky day because earlier on I was about to throw out some rubbish, or what I thought was rubbish, and then I noticed what looked like a book in the middle of this pile of rubbish. Further investigation revealed that it was indeed a book, and a book that I didn't want to throw out. Haven't read it for a couple of years, but I've had it for about 20. This old thing here. And I think it's a really good book, so I thought that I would share some of the contents with you. It's a bit of an overview, but it may whet your appetite. If you're interested in buying this book, I'll give you the details at the end. I'm not on commission whatsoever. I just think you might find this useful. The book is called The Luck Factor. It's by Professor Richard Wiseman. And let me read a little bit from the intro. Lucky people meet their perfect partners, achieve their lifelong ambitions, find fulfilling careers, and live happy and meaningful lives. Don't you just hate them? Their success is not due to them working especially hard, being amazingly talented, or exceptionally intelligent. Yeah, I've noticed. Instead, they appear to have an uncanny ability to be in the right place at the right time and enjoy more than their fair share of lucky breaks. I know people like that for sure. This book describes the first scientific study into why lucky people live such charmed lives and offers ideas for how others can enhance their own good fortune. Don't know about you, but I'm all in. So let's explore. Oh, by the way, at the end of this video, or towards the end of it, I'll talk about what I think, particularly recently for me, has been one of the things that is most likely to aid or detract from my ability to experience better outcomes. In other words, to be luckier. So here we go. From this book, as I've said, Chapter 3 it says, well, this is principle 1. So we've got 4 principles and there will be sub-principles beneath those. Maximize your chance opportunities. Lucky people create, notice and act upon the chance opportunities in their life. Now I should explain, in the book there's already been a preamble. You see this is chapter 3, and there is much more in the book that I'm going to go over. That's true when I read from articles, but it's especially true when I read from a book. And there are exercises to do in there which, in a sense, are like homework. And that's always important in terms of learning, cementing ideas, and indeed transformation. So what do we mean by that? Well, let's look at a little snippet from the book. However, Joe is especially lucky in competitions, and his recent successes include winning televisions, a day spent on the set of a well-known television soap opera, and several holidays. What is behind Lynn, Wendy, and Joe's winning ways? The secret is surprisingly simple. They all enter a very large number of competitions. Each week, Wendy enters about 60 postal competitions. Again, this is going back a little bit. And about 70 internet-based competitions. Likewise, both Lynn and Joe enter about 50 competitions a week. So what is this saying? Well, again, if we look at that first principle, maximize your chance opportunities. Maximize the chances of your opportunities to get a result which is positive. Obviously, in the book, which I've mentioned, is full of ideas and examples, and in a sense, I suppose you could call them case studies. It's focusing here on competitions, but if you think about it, if you don't enter a competition, then you're kind of not maximizing your chances of winning that competition. The opportunity is there. There are lots of opportunities in terms of competitions around every single day, and I appreciate they do cost money to enter. That could be a limiting factor, absolutely. But by and large, for most of us, most of the time, it's a couple of quid or so. But if we don't enter, then not only do we minimize the chance, we wipe it out. There's no chance. And so this is like I suppose, an allegory of life. Are we actually doing something to increase our chances, or are we doing nothing which, as I've suggested, doesn't minimize them, it destroys them. They don't exist. So, sub-principle 1. So here we go. The first sub-principle. Lucky people build and maintain a strong network of luck. So we've seen The heading, the main heading, was maximising chance opportunities. Sub-principle, lucky people build and maintain a strong network of luck. So, my research revealed that lucky people scored much higher than unlucky people on a dimension of personality known as extroversion. Extroverts are far more sociable than introverts. They enjoy spending time visiting friends and going to parties and tend to be attracted to jobs that involve working with other people. Introverts are far more inward-looking. They're happy to spend time on their own and feel most contented when, and then it goes on to basically say something along the lines of being on their own. Now, first up, this book, as I said, is a few years old. So let's sort of meet something head on. There is no excuse if you've labelled yourself as an introvert or indeed an extrovert to do or not do these things. Or let me rephrase that. It is an excuse, but that's what it is. It's not a reason. I'm an introvert. In old language, would have been called shy, still am. I do not like going to any event or connecting or engaging with people. Correction again, I don't enjoy the thought of it. And then when I go over that thought, I find that I can do things, I can connect, and I thoroughly enjoy it, and I meet some amazing people. Now, that thread about connecting is in different ways throughout the book, and I'll pick up on it later in not exactly a different way, but I'll add some more thoughts into the mix. And so also the latest research, or latest-ish research, suggests that there isn't that much of a difference between introversion and extroversion in terms of energy. You've probably heard this, that an introvert will get tired if they go and attend something, they need to recover. An extrovert less so, but extroverts can indeed get tired. It can take a fair amount out of them, sometimes the same as the introvert. Why? Because they're expending potentially more energy because they're meeting more people, and maybe their brains are processing more. That's one reason. So I guess what I'm saying is that we mustn't fall back on the label, or at least labeling ourselves. I am, therefore I can't. There's another word out there called omnivore, which essentially means that we can be both. And I think most of us, a lot of the time, are actually both. What I am certain of is that introverts can definitely do extroversion. They can definitely do it. May mean they have to, put a damp towel over their head after the party, but they can do it, and they can be the life and soul, and they can thoroughly enjoy it. Extroverts sometimes need to be quieter, and ironically, that can be more difficult for them to dial it down than for the introvert to crank it up. So, this thing about, again, back to the text, visiting friends and going to parties tend to be attracted to jobs that involve working with other people. And that may be true. There probably is a correlation in that. But the headline, the sub-principle, maintain a strong network of luck, is what I'm getting to. This is so important. To create that network, there are various ways to do it. But one of the ways is to go to things. One of the ways is to contact people. These days, one of the ways is to chat to them online. For many people, it's a lot less challenging, but I cannot emphasize that enough, because this is a numbers game. Right away, if you think about it, to be luckier, we need more connections, do we not? We need to have more opportunities out there to increase that chance, to increase somebody saying, hey, you'd be ideal for this, or I want to talk to you about this holiday opportunity that I know of. So if I've got a network of 6, then, well, my opportunities are diminished, reduced, if that makes sense. If someone has a network of 100, then it's more possible that somebody having a random conversation, apparently in London somewhere, says, do you know somebody who's got the skill set of this? Well, I don't, but I know someone who does, and that someone who doesn't know me directly, but they know someone who knows someone. And again, 6 degrees of separation or whatever. But essentially speaking, it's like sales. The more no's you get, the closer you get to a yes. It's a numbers game in one sense. So then, if we go on, And once more, we're jumping into the text. Robert described himself as very outgoing and talkative. He told me that if he's standing in a supermarket queue, he will often start chatting to the people next to him, and described how frequently he strikes up conversations with strangers. Robert really enjoys meeting people and spending time with them. And the more people he meets, the greater his chances of coming into contact with someone who can have a beneficial effect on his life. Exactly that. And so, does that mean we need to practice saying hello and perhaps engaging in some small talk? Yes, it's not a bad idea. And do you know what? More and more these days, I think we need to do it. It's nice to be nice. It's kind to be kind. And who knows who we will meet in those situations? Who knows where it may lead? I have had such pleasant conversations with individuals in areas that I'm not even remotely from, and they've felt, even in a short period of time, I talked to people, deep, enriching, and there was a sense of connection. And I thought, why can't all my conversations be like that? Probably because I'm not having that many conversations like that. Like a lot of us these days, we're looking at these phones. Yes, of course, you can connect online, but it's not ideal, and it's not the thing I believe that we should use. I was going to say primarily, but let's say we should use instead of face-to-face. Face-to-face is better wherever possible. Moving on, the differences between the lucky and unlucky people were dramatic. The lucky people, so this is when they're face-to-face, meeting people, or online, smiled twice as much as unlucky people and engaged in far more eye contact. However, perhaps the biggest differences emerged when we examined the degree to which they engaged in open or closed body language. People exhibit closed body language when they cross their arms and legs and orientate themselves away from the person they're speaking to. Open body language is exactly the opposite. People point their bodies towards the person that they're speaking to, uncross their arms and legs, and often make gestures that involve them displaying open palms. Lucky people tend to engage in 3 times as much open body language as unlucky people. Now, again, written a little while ago, and first up, arm folding, it doesn't necessarily mean that someone's defensive. It could be cold. As often as not, what you're looking at, if you want to read someone, well, there's various things. You've got to be aware of the context for a start off. And you can look at the position of feet. That's interesting. Where they're facing. Men, very often, man to man, will stand at a slightly different angle than female to female. Some people suggest. And also the idea of the arm fold, it will imagine someone says something and someone sort of moves back a little and then crosses their arms, then maybe there's something happening there. But we're talking in general terms, a more open body language display and smiling and eye contact as opposed to closed. And so does this mean that that's useful in terms of luck? Yes, it does. It does, because you're increasing those chances. And you may be listening to this just now and going, oh no, but I couldn't do that. You probably can. You probably can. I can do it, and it's not my natural domain, going to these things, socializing in that way. But it's odd, because when I've done it, I've enjoyed it. And there's this whole idea that if you change your physiology and how you stand, is it Amy Cuddy and is it Harvard? She's in the sort of power stance, which to me, don't do that at a party. And it's like, what is it? Fake it till you feel it type thing, and smiling and frowning, that can have an impact on our memory, at least short term, allegedly. And so by changing our body language, we can actually change how we feel as well. It is suggested. So it's not a question of going in and going, well, I'm a real introvert, so I'm going to go to this get together. So to make friends, what I need to do is woo, hey, mwah, how are you doing? You over there do that politician thing, or do they point, hey, and wave. People go, what are you doing? But what is probably to be avoided is the kind of, looking down and and frowning and standing against the wall. Because statistically, that's less likely to give you as many connections with people as having that more open body language. It may mean that people come up asking if you're okay, and of course that's a different thing. Probably not the outcome that you wanted. So, networks, numbers game, doing things to help us connect, going to those things. Introvert, omnivert, or extrovert, doesn't matter. And be aware of body language. Just think to yourself, I'm enjoying this. And put a smile on your face. You'll be fine. Lucky people are effective at building secure and long-lasting attachments with the people that they meet. They're easy to get to know, and most people like them. And again, that's so interesting. Because I look at all of this and compare it to what I would do normally, what is my default, as opposed to what I've learned to do, and sometimes don't do what I've learned. So what's that about? A tip from me, and again, I'm putting in ideas that aren't necessarily in the book, of course, there's that, what is it? How to Win Friends and Influence People. Yeah, that old classic from way back. And I remember as a younger person reading that and thinking, oh, wow, it's going to be this thing that you do. And it was startlingly simple in many ways, but like a lot of simple ideas, very powerful. And it was along the lines of to be interested, to ask questions. People like talking about themselves. And so if you don't have any small talk, then think about some small talk that you could engage in before you get there. Yes, it's okay to have a little routine. Why shouldn't you? If you don't have it, you don't want to stand awkwardly. I don't have it. I'm probably a bit better than I was, but not much. But what I always have is the ability to ask questions, and so do you. So smiling, open body language. How are you? How are you doing? Hey, how long have you known Peggy and Sue? Name of a song. And hopefully you get the idea that if you're doing that, that tends to be a bit more likable. Then they will ask questions about you, and you can't guarantee it's going to be a long-lasting attachment, but there's a bit of depth to it, as opposed to just hi and then moving on, which you may want to do for other reasons. Don't get me wrong. It's not that you have to spend hours talking to everyone, but that wouldn't necessarily be a bad idea. Sub-principle 2. So again, another sub-principle. Lucky people have a relaxed attitude towards life. Now, that's easier said than done, particularly these days. And what does it mean by relaxed? Well, I'll put my interpretation on that, but let's look here. I carried out a very simple experiment into the phenomenon. I gave people a newspaper and asked them to look through it and tell me how many photographs were inside. It all seemed fair and above board. I simply wanted to know how many photographs were in the newspaper. Everyone found the task very easy, and it took most of them about 2 minutes to look through the newspaper and count the photographs. A few people took slightly longer because they went through the newspaper a second time and double-checked. The second page of the newspaper contained a message which said, "Stop counting, there are 43 photographs in this newspaper." This was not a small message tucked away in a corner of the page. This message took up half of the page and was written in type that was over 1.5 inches high. It was a huge message staring everyone straight in the face, but nobody saw it because they were too focused on looking for photographs. And there are many things in this little exercise. So basically, they're given a time limit. And in a different example, which I'm not going to spend time covering here, I think there was a monetary prize as well, ultimately, and people would go through quite quickly. This message, there are 43 photographs, I believe, was on the inside. So that you got the front page, the headlines, and it's the one when you open it up on the left. And people just weren't seeing it. Why? Because we don't take on board everything that is in our environment. You've probably heard me talk about this before. Our attention is drawn to certain things because top-down interest, in this case, this was photograph. Sometimes it's bottom-up. So there's a movement where our attention is drawn because of a noise or something over here, and that's going on all the time. But if you imagine you're daydreaming or something, or maybe writing or working, and the radio's on in the background, and your football team or sports team or somebody that you're interested in, their name or that music is played, the name's mentioned, then your attention is drawn to it. And that ability to notice things in the environment that we're interested in is useful for us in different ways. So when people are focused, consciously, of course, in this instance, to say, let me look for those things that are a photograph, they're literally blind to the text, but not everyone. And Richard Wiseman suggests that one of the reasons is because when people are more anxious, their thinking is narrow. And I believe that certainly that's true, in the sense that if we're stressed, particularly as we head towards strong emotions overpowering us, or fight or flight specifically, then we're thinking survival. We're thinking here. It's like looking through a keyhole. Everything is reduced. We've got to focus on only a few things. If we're relaxed, then our attention is wider. Our ability to look at a situation is wider, it's more lateral. And this is what I think is happening here. So by and large, he's saying that if you're anxious, if you're sort of scrabbling around, you'll miss opportunities. And I think that's true. And it doesn't mean we can be totally relaxed. Well, no, because the people who are lucky are also doing things. They're entering competitions. They're going to that get-together. They're networking. So it's not that they're sitting back. I think what he's really saying is that if we cannot find ways, or at least this is my interpretation, if we cannot find ways to reduce our stress levels, then we will miss opportunities. We've got to be more aware of our environment. And if we move on here, sub-principle 3, lucky people are open to new experiences in their lives. In some ways, this is connected, because if our vision is just, let's go and survive the day, which sometimes we've all got to do, don't get me wrong, I understand that, implicitly understand that. But when it's not pure survival, our habit can be just get through it with this narrow focus. We're not looking at the other opportunities. And to help us with that, this sub-principle, I think, is here. So, open to new experiences. There is a third and final set of unexplored techniques that lucky people unconsciously use to promote the good fortune they encounter. These centre around another important dimension of their personalities referred to as openness. Now, openness, in terms of one of the personality traits, is essentially means that it's like experiences. Yeah, I'll do that. I'm interested in that. I'm interested in this thing over here. We can have too much openness at times and be too distracted, but the ability to say, yeah, let me just give that a go, is useful in terms of luck, because what are you doing? You're opening yourself up to more contacts. You're also opening yourself up to those situations where you may spot something, particularly if you're more relaxed. You may spot hey, collect the money, there are 43 photographs in this newspaper. And that idea of openness, I believe, is something just like if you're an introvert, you can practice and get better at. Some people say, just go through the whole month saying yes to everything and see where it takes you. Very interesting exercise. I have to put in a couple of caveats in there, because that could be dangerous. It's not to be foolish here, but it's quite a nice concept. How many things do you say no to? How many things could you increase the saying yes to, but remembering what we've talked about already in terms of those encounters with people, and also remembering some of the stuff that we'll cover as we go through these other principles and sub-principles. So here's principle 2. Listen to your lucky hunches. Lucky people make successful decisions by using their intuition and gut feelings. And I don't know about you, but that rings true very much for me. So the first sub-principle, lucky people listen to their gut feelings and hunches, kind of as it's said. So let's explore that idea then. Intuition and I think how did Wiseman gut feelings and hunches. Intuition is what I'd call it. Gut feeling and hunches, I believe, is the same thing. Where is it coming from? Well, the gut, we now understand, communicates to the brain. So when people talk about that gut feeling, there's something going on. It's a way for the body to tell us something, or part of the body to tell us something in a different way that we may not be picking up. As a matter of interest, in case you didn't know, the heart has also got neurons and communicates to the brain and vice versa. So more and more we're realizing that those things that we consider to be maybe not scientific perhaps can be explained ultimately by science as we uncover more, as we understand more. And I, funnily enough, tend not to talk about gut feelings. I've used the phrase, I use more the catch-all intuition. Hunches, yeah, intuition. Sometimes premonition, but that's a different story for another time. So for me, intuition as opposed to instinct. So this is not, I'm not reading from the book here, I'm not quoting from the book at all. Instinct for me is more fight or flight. It's more, there's danger. And it can be very clever, very subtle, because it's picking up on something that we haven't noticed. It could be that a shadow has moved from when we left the car park to when we get back in. And we're not consciously aware of it, but some part of us is. And it's trying to let us know. Maybe that feeling is through the gut. Maybe it's what we would just call my instinct said. The hairs on my neck stood up. Something was wrong, and I don't know what it was. Now, I would say that instinct is like a subset of intuition. Intuition for me is wider. Intuition is like, I've described this over the years as super logic. It is above our ability to be rationally or consciously aware of other things are happening. And just in the same way that emotions can appear as a physical sensation that we label to give them the name and then call it that emotion, or at least that's one theory, I believe that intuition may work in a similar fashion. There's something signaling us in the body, but it may also come partly, at least, from within. The ability to look at something and do what is called a pattern match. We have all these patterns inside us that we then try and click to, the best way to think about it, a situation going, that matches. This is the situation where that person's angry, or, this business deal. Yeah, that spreadsheet tells me that I should go ahead and do what I need to do. So pattern matches can be, it can come in all shapes and sizes. But intuition, as far as I'm concerned, is a kind of pattern match to this situation that I don't know. It's like how some people will say, that's a fake. If you look at Malcolm Gladwell's book, Blink, I think it's called, I don't agree with all of it. I think it's a really good book, but he talks about situations where a fire chief gets the crew out because there's something wrong with the building, and people are saying, we've doused it down, it's okay, we've done this, we've done that. The crew are as safe as we think they need to be at this point in time, and the fire chief goes, no, get them out now. He doesn't know why. Could call it instinct, could definitely call it intuition as well. Gut feeling, something is saying, get these people out. And at that point, just as they come out, then there's this backdraft phenomenon, as I recall from the book. So what is happening over the years, decades possibly, with this fire chief? He or she has seen this situation. They've seen this situation, recorded it somewhere. They've seen it more than once. The details are different, but what is happening is somewhere in the system, a signal is saying to them, wake up and get those people the heck out of there, or words to that effect. So, lucky people, listen. And let me ask you this question. How often have you not listened to your intuition and regretted it later? What's that about? So, lucky people, intuition. Despite what someone else might be saying, despite what the logic, inverted commas, of the situation may be saying, they listen to their intuition. Can I say to you it's right every single time? Absolutely not. I can't. But I also can't remember when it was truly my intuition and I disagreed with it and did something different, that was a good thing. Thank you. You made it this far. You've reached the epilogue. I did promise that I'd talk about that thing that is making the biggest difference to me in terms of enhancing luck. All the other elements are essential. By the way, I haven't covered them all in this video, not remotely. Once more, I encourage you to read the book, and also the video would be just far too long. So anyway, the thing for me that makes the biggest difference is the network. I mentioned it already. I have been in situations where my network has gone from healthy, vibrant, organically growing to almost nothing. And the difference is stark. It is almost overnight bleak. The phone can stop ringing, or at least it seems to be that way. The opportunities to engage, connect with people, whether that's for business and or pleasure, dissipate markedly. It's almost like just, careering off a cliff. It's quite astounding. And I've also been in a position where my network has been buzzing, and the phone, therefore, tends to buzz. Now, I'm thinking primarily when I talk about this in terms of business, but for sure, it also has a big effect on social and familial life as well. And I've gone through periods where you literally think you're invisible, and it is not pleasant. With a network, you've got that element of feeling connected, literally. I know that you might expect that, but you feel part of something. And one of the other benefits is that because you're engaging with people and talking and conversing and sharing views and opinions, it is mentally healthy. I mean, as I've mentioned before, I'm a bit of an introvert, but that doesn't mean to say that I don't like people around. Certainly within a percentage of the day, week, month, I definitely do. And when that isn't there, it's not good. It's not healthy. I think you lose out in many different ways. You're not supported. You're not challenged. You're not inspired. You're not connected. And that's one of those fundamental aspects of human nature, that we need to feel part of something. And even if the network is disparate with different trades, people, interests, it's still a network. It's still connection. And more these days, as we talk about hyper connectivity 24/7, I think it's hypo connectivity. So when I talk about a network, it is useful to know people, but I think it's useful to know them enough that you can pick up the phone, or at least email and ask to set up a call. If you're not really connected in that way, I don't consider that individual to be primarily part of my network. But if I can email or call, then yeah, there's something that I might be able to help them with, or they could help me with. So there we go. I hope you find that useful. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Again, I'm delighted that you've stuck with it thus far. If you have stuck with it this far and you haven't subscribed, please do. If you have subscribed, please let your friends know about it. They can subscribe also, like, comment. It really does make a big difference. I know a few people have said that over the last few years on many videos, but it's only when you start to create something and you want to create that bit of community connection, network, you could say, that you realize how important it is. Anyway, thank you very much again. For the moment, from me, bye for now.